In today's video, we'll talk about Henrietta Maria of France, who was born at the Louvre Palace in Paris on November 25, 1609. She was born a daughter of France, as she was the youngest of the 6 children of King Henri IV and of Marie de Medici, his second wife. Her father was murdered when she was just 5 months old by the Catholic fanatic François Ravaillac on May 14, 1610. After the regicide of Henri IV, the Queen Consort Maria de Medici took on the reign on behalf of her son Louis XIII, who was not yet 9 years old, too young to be able to reign. Marie de Medici did not have a good relationship with her son, and when Louis XIII took on power in 1617, he exiled his mother to the Château de Blois. Because of this, Henriette Marie practically grew up an orphan, surrounded only by her siblings and the French court. She was raised a Catholic. After her older sister, Maria Cristina, who married Victor Amadeus I, Duc de Savoie, in 1619, Henriette was assigned the title of Madame Royale, which was used by the highest-ranking royal princesses in the French court. Marie Henriette grew up under the supervision of the royal governess Françoise de Montglat and was taught, along with her sisters, in horseback riding, dancing and singing. She also participated in French court plays. Despite her reading and writing classes, she was not known for her academic abilities. Henriette met her future husband in Paris in 1623, when Charles I was traveling to Spain with the Duke of Buckingham to arrange a possible marriage with the Infanta Maria Anna of Spain, which did not materialize due to political reasons. When the Prince of Wales, the future King Charles I, returned to his country with the Duke of Buckingham after the unsuccessful marriage negotiations with Spain, he passed through France, meeting Henrietta Maria there. After obtaining the approval of James I of England and King Louis XIII of France, who was Henriette's brother, they were married by proxy in Paris on May 11, 1625, shortly after Charles had ascended the English throne. Because Henriette was a Catholic, the marriage was not well received with the Protestant English population. The formal marriage ceremony took place in the Church of St. Augustine in Canterbury, Kent, on June 13, 1625. Due to her religion, it was impossible for her to be crowned queen next to her husband when said ceremony was held at Westminster Abbey. Henriette was only allowed to watch Charles's coronation at a discreet distance. At first, the relationship between Charles and Henrietta was cold. Henrietta Maria arrived from her country with many servants, who cost the crown a considerable sum of money. Finally, the king sent the entire staff back to France, leaving his 16-year-old bride with no one but her chaplain and 2 ladies-in-waiting. Seeing how terribly sad the queen looked out the palace window as her entourage returned to France, Charles reacted angrily and dragged Henrietta away from the window. Even though her household had been reformed, Henrietta Maria kept spending too much. Despite gifts from the king, she had to secretly borrow money in 1627, and the accounts show a large number of expensive dresses that were purchased during the pre-war years. Charles liked to call his wife Mary, and the English called her Queen Mary after Charles's Catholic grandmother. Henrietta Maria was very open about her Catholic beliefs to the point of being blatant and unapologetic. She obstructed plans for forcibly removing the oldest children of all Catholic families with the goal of raising them as Protestants, and she also facilitated Catholic marriages, which was a criminal offense under English law at the time. Catholics were still being executed in England during the 1620s, and the Queen was passionate about their faith. In due course, she would unsuccessfully attempt to convert her Calvinist nephew, Prince Rupert, during his stay in England. The new queen never fully adjusted to English society. She did not speak English prior to her marriage, and in the 1640s she still had difficulty speaking and writing the language. This, combined with her religious beliefs, marked her as potentially dangerous in English society at that time, which feared a repeat of terrorist attacks such as the Gunpowder Plot and led to her becoming an unpopular queen. The marriage of the couple did not start well. Every time the couple was together, they would start arguing and depart, not seeing each other for weeks. When they reconciled and got back together, they'd separate again because they couldn't stop fighting. One of the Queen's closest companions in the early days of Henriette's stay in England was Lucy Hay, who was the wife of James Hay, a favorite of King James. James had helped to negotiate Charles's marriage to Henrietta Maria. Lucy was a staunch Protestant with remarkable beauty and a strong personality. It was rumored that she was Buckingham's mistress, rumors the Queen would have been aware of, and it has been said that Lucy was trying to control the new Queen. However, by the summer of 1628, the two were very close friends, and Lucy Hay was one of the Queen's bridesmaids. The Queen detested her husband's favorite, the Duke of Buckingham. Buckingham was assassinated in August 1628, possibly on the orders of Henrietta Maria and the French court. After the death of Buckingham, Henrietta's relationship with the king improved remarkably. However, Henrietta's refusal to renounce her Catholic faith earned her the hatred of the English population and of certain courtiers who wielded great power, such as William Laud, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and Thomas Wentworth, Earl of Strafford. As her relationship with her husband grew stronger, the friendship between Henriette and Lucy Hay ended in 1634. The specific reasons are largely unclear, although the two friends had had their differences before. Lucy was an ardent Protestant, for example, and led a far more dissolute life than Henriette. Henriette may also have felt overshadowed by the beautiful Hay, and because she now had such a close bond with her husband, she had no further need of Hay. As a result of the improved relationship with her husband, the Queen became pregnant but lost her first child shortly after birth due to a difficult labor. From their marriage, 9 children were born in total. Charles James, Duke of Cornwall and Rothesay, Charles II, the successor of Charles I, King of England and Scotland after the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, Mary, who married Prince William II of Orange-Nassau, James, Duke of York and Albany. He succeeded his brother Charles II as James II of England and James VII of Scotland. Elizabeth, who died at the age of 15. The princess had a cold that quickly turned into pneumonia. She died on September 8, 1650, and was buried in St. Thomas Church in Newport. Anne, Catherine, Henry, the Earl of Richmond and Duke of Gloucester, who died suddenly at the age of 20, shortly after contracting smallpox. And finally, Henrietta Anne, who married Philip of France, Duc d'Orléans, brother of King Louis XIV of France. For a biography on Henriette Anne Stuart, you can click on the link in the upper right corner. Henrietta Maria became increasingly involved in English politics as the country headed hopelessly into an open conflict in the 1630s. With war drawing closer and closer, she actively set about raising funds and aids for her husband, but her desire to turn to Catholic sources, such as the Pope and her brother, the King of France, angered many in England and hampered Charles's efforts. In 1632, construction began on a new Catholic chapel at Somerset House. Although modest on the outside, the chapel was rather extravagant on the inside and was inaugurated in a grand ceremony in 1636. The inauguration angered the Protestant community as the number of conversions to Catholicism was on the rise. The king became heavily criticized for his inability to stop the flow of conversions, and the result was a growing intolerance of the Protestants towards the Queen, gradually turning into hatred. In August 1642, when the English Civil War started, Henriette was in Europe. She continued to collect money for the royal cause and did not return to England until early 1643, when Henriette returned with troops and soldiers she had managed to gather and joined the royal forces in northern England. Henriette stayed with the army in the north for a few months before meeting Charles I at Oxford. The final blow to Charles's position came when the Scots sided with Parliament. Henriette's refusal to accept the terms of the peace agreement forced her to flee to France with her children in July 1644. She never saw her husband again. Charles I was executed in 1649. Henriette moved to Paris and angered the exiled royalists and her eldest son by trying to convert his youngest son, Henry, to Catholicism. She returned to England after the Restoration in October 1660 and lived as Queen Dowager at Somerset House, London. In 1661, she returned to France, ready to marry her youngest daughter, Henriette Anne Stuart, to Philippe, Louis XIV's only brother. The marriage significantly strengthened the alliance between the English and the French. After her daughter's wedding, the Queen returned to England in 1662, accompanied by her son Charles II and her nephew Prince Rupert. She intended to stay in England for the rest of her life, but in 1665, being seriously affected by bronchitis due to the humid British climate, she returned to France, residing at the Hôtel de Bazinière, the current Hôtel de Chimay in Paris. Henrietta Maria of France died at the Château de Colombes on September 10, 1669. She was 59 years old. She was buried in the Basilica de Saint-Denis near Paris. Her heart was placed in a silver coffer and buried in the convent of Chaillot. If you'd like to learn more about Philippe d'Orléans or Louis XIII, you can click on one of the two links you see right now. I hope you'll join me next week for a Christmas-themed video to start off the holiday season. See you then!